Alexandra Macia and Tom Tieferteller.
Good evening and thanks for joining us for CBS7 News on the CW, and thanks for joining us live on the CBS7 YouTube. I'm Alexandra Macia, and we start tonight with news across Texas. With the recent rise in border crossings over the last month, Governor Greg Abbott called for a special session to address border security issues. The state Senate on Tuesday approved a $1.5 billion proposal that would give Governor Greg Abbott the money to continue building a barrier along the Texas-Mexico border and pay for state troopers. This bill would set aside $40 million for overtime expenses and costs to increase law enforcement presence. The rest of the funds would go to continue building a barrier on the 1,200-mile Texas-Mexico border. For border security out here in West Texas, they have the Rio Grande, which helps them with security, but other parts of the state don't have that barrier, so this funding will help in places like Eagle Pass.
We have the lower canyons of the Rio Grande, and they create a barrier. So this particular area out here in West Texas that we work and patrol, we likely won't see any border fencing, or we won't. We're not looking to fence it. We can use technology to help us defend this portion of the border and help secure it.
With the bill passing in the Senate, it now has to pass in the House to then be signed by Governor Greg Abbott. And it's time to take a look at weather. Chief Meteorologist Tom Tieferteller is here to tell us what we can expect. Tom.
We are going to be looking at a little more of the same. In fact, temperatures will be warming up even more here over the next few days. Taking a look at high temperatures we saw today. Broke the 70-degree mark over towards Odessa and areas west this afternoon, all the way up into the mid-70s in Pecos and Fort Stockton this afternoon. Looking outside, quiet, beautiful evening out there with lots of clear skies and temperatures. You probably need a light jacket with those upper 50s across the Permian Basin now moving in. You get into those mountains even chillier with Marfa looking at 49 degrees. And there's not a lot of wind to deal with out there. We're seeing a south to southeast wind, 5 to 15 miles an hour. So adding to the chill just a tad. And it looks like this is going to keep things warm as we move in towards the next few days. Look at this temperature trend. Beautiful weekend on the way. Next week, 80s back in our forecast before we see a front finally roll in and bring some fall weather back to us.
Thanks, Tom. Next week, voters will decide the fate of Proposition A of the ECISD bond. Part of that prop includes a new middle school and sweeping repairs across the district. However, many voters may not have a chance to see that requested maintenance before they head to the polls. Each ECISD campus has unique needs, but the 6 middle schools are all more than 60 years old. On a typical day at Bonham, teachers repeatedly restart the school's electric circuit to keep the power on. The broken elevator confines students and staff with disabilities to the first floor. The locker rooms have no hot water and low water pressure. When the showers do run, the area often requires a manual pump to drain. Overall, the district handles about 1,200 maintenance requests per month.
The district's done the best it can, it's been able to do with what it has. And at this point, when we're having to do that many repairs or that many replacements, you have to go, well, how do I get this done with the current budget that we have? Who gets to be behind? Who is going to suffer because we didn't replace this system?
At Nimitz, 18 portable classrooms sit on the property. They're used to house on an overflow of teachers and students. And starting your own business right out of high school is not something you typically see from someone with no business background. But that's what one Odessan did in 2018, building his own business for a trade he learned at 14 years old. Giovanni Gomez started learning cabinetry when he was just 14 years old. Now, 9 years later, he is confident in his work after seeing the ups and downs of starting your own business. One person gave him a shot when he had no idea what he was doing. In fact, he didn't know what the lines on a tape measure were for. He kept working until he understood the trade and also became a first-generation high school graduate. Then he started Exquisite Cabinets right in his backyard.
Really, really hard, man. I'd have to say that I've been pretty close to giving up a couple of times, considering that, I didn't have really nobody to teach me to, how to run a business. I've kind of just had to learn all the in and outs of the business on my own.
In the 6 years since starting the business, he has been able to branch out to a variety of projects, Giovanni plans to start a new business called Exquisite Homes by the end of the year, allowing him to take on even more projects like building and remodeling homes. He's even going to build his own house from scratch. And in the community, law enforcement and officials throughout the Permian Basin had a chance this morning to have breakfast with champions, not only to meet these Special Olympic athletes, but also to hear their stories. Many speakers came up to the podium to talk about the importance of hosting the Special Olympics in the Midland-Odessa area. Athletes from all parts of Texas were present to share their experiences being a part of the Special Olympics.
It's just an amazing feeling, coming out here, meeting new people, athletes, coaches, making new friends and stuff like that. It's just an amazing, to me, it helped me a lot over the years and in life, just being out there to compete with with people out here in the Permian Basin.
Hundreds of people were present to show their support and donate to the Special Olympics Texas. The wreath was presented by the Midland County Sheriff's Office, but the Odessa Police Department, Odessa Fire Rescue, and other officials were also there. If you want to know how you can help the Special Olympics Texas, you can visit our website at CBS7.com. And the Midland City Council authorized the purchase of a new fitness court that will be installed at the Dennis the Menace Park. The fitness court is designed by the National Fitness Campaign, and it is to provide a full body workout for all ages. The fitness court will have 7 zones to rotate through for a circuit training workout. There is an app to track your activity and access training videos. The National Fitness Campaign awarded a grant to the City of Midland to start the new fitness court.
I think it will add to the quality of life as far as the health benefits go. Just being able to go somewhere and work out at no cost, and especially you can take your kids to the park and then go get a workout while you're there. And
they will start building the new fitness court in early January, and they are hoping to finish it in early spring. And it is Aviation History Month. Aviation has, of course, played a major role in the history of Midland. So the City of Midland spoke with Bill Coombs about the history. During World War II, Midland was home to the largest bombardier training base in all of the United States. The base trained over 6,000 bombardiers, some of whom decided to call Midland their new permanent home.
A lot of the people who were based here stayed here. Art Cole in the community theater, he was based here, and several insurance guys, a whole bunch of people that you would not realize actually chose to stay in Midland, Texas after the war, when Midland, Texas only had a population of 3,000. When the base closed, for whatever reason, they thought it was a nice place to be, so they stayed.
A plane used to train them, and it is still housed to this day at the Midland Army Airfield Museum hangar. And in continuing coverage, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on his way to Israel, where the White House says he will urge a pause in the fighting in Gaza. More than 100 trucks with aid made their way into Gaza on Thursday as the humanitarian crisis there worsens and the fighting intensifies. CBS News correspondent Skylar Henry reports from Washington.
Israel ramped up the deadly bombardment of Gaza with large-scale airstrikes while ground troops work to encircle Hamas. Israel's military is facing off with Hamas in close combat as soldiers advance deeper into Gaza City. Meeting with an IDF unit, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the Jewish state will not halt its operation to eradicate the Hamas terrorists.
As we've said from the start, Israel has not only the right but the obligation to defend itself.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken headed to the region for talks Friday in Israel and neighboring Jordan.
We will focus as well on steps that need to be taken to protect civilians who are in a crossfire of Hamas's making.
Blinken's trip comes after President Biden suggested Israel pause fighting to let in more aid for Palestinians and allow additional foreign nationals and wounded people out of the war-torn Gaza Strip.
Around 800 people, including dozens of dual American citizens, have left over the past 2 days.
I was supposed to leave on Sunday, and it was the second day of war, and I couldn't just leave my family behind and say bye-bye. A lot of people are dying. A lot of people are under the rubbles of buildings.
These Jordanian citizens who fled Gaza arrived in Amman on Thursday. Meanwhile, rockets wreaked havoc in northern Israel. Hamas says it fired a dozen rockets from Lebanon, but it was not clear where they landed. Skylar Henry, CBS News, the White House.
Now to a stunning development today in the deadly police beating of Tyree Nichols. A former Memphis officer, one of the 5 charged in the case, changed his plea to guilty today on federal charges. We get the details from CBS's Elise Preston.
This was just one of many that I hope will come in our favor.
Tyree Nichols' mother, Rovon Wells, spoke outside the federal courthouse today, just minutes after watching former Memphis police officer Desmond Mills plead guilty in the beating death of her son during a police traffic stop.
This was really the first time I actually heard somebody tell and say what they actually did to my son.
Her son died January 10th, 3 days after he was repeatedly kicked and punched by Mills and 4 other Memphis police officers, which was caught on police body cams. They were all part of the now disbanded Scorpion Street Crime Unit. In September, a federal grand jury indicted all 5 officers on 4 counts, which carried a life sentence, and they are all facing state charges. But today, Mills agreed to plead guilty to 2 counts, excessive force and conspiracy to witness tampering. He is now facing 15 years.
He is fully cooperating and we expect him to continue to fully cooperate, answering all questions truthfully.
As part of the plea agreement, Mills is also expected to plead guilty to related state charges.
The pressure that is now put on the other 4 is really huge. So one can anticipate that any of the 4 will try to be the second one in line.
Elise Preston, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Now for a look at today's top headlines shown here in real time with real viewers on CBS7.com. See all of these stories and more by downloading our app or visiting our website at CBS7.com. And still ahead, the mayors from Denver and Chicago were in Washington, D.C. Thursday to discuss the migrant crisis, which is straining their city resources. And it's that time of year again, time for Tom's Coats. As the temperatures drop, many West Texans are struggling to stay warm. That's why Chief Meteorologist Tom Teeper-Teller is hosting a coat drive. CBS7 is looking for gently used or new jackets or sweaters for the drive. You can donate jackets and coats at the locations listed on your screen. The mayors from Denver and Chicago were in Washington, D.C. today for meetings at the White House and Capitol Hill to discuss the migrant crisis, which is straining their city resources. Natalie Brand has more details from Capitol Hill.
The mayors of Denver and Chicago took their concerns to the nation's capital as their cities struggle to care for and house a growing population of migrants.
We inherited this crisis that, quite frankly, has been an international and a national dynamic that has gone unaddressed for a very long time.
We think the current situation is unsustainable, but also we think that there is a common sense path to get to a workable solution.
In a letter to President Biden from Denver Mayor Mike Johnston, joined by the mayors of Chicago, Los Angeles, Houston, and New York, they asked for additional federal funding, as well as the accelerated approval of work authorizations and a coordinated entry process for migrants.
If we have a coordinated strategy around the country and people have the ability to work when they arrive, we can partner with other cities and states to make sure everyone helps welcome their fair share of newcomers and they can be successful.
The mayors shared their ideas with lawmakers here on Capitol Hill and also met with the White House Chief of Staff.
These conversations have been positive, and it's a start in the right direction.
Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says the migrant crisis is costing his city around $40 million a month.
That is not sustainable, right? By the end of this year, we're going to reach well over $300 million alone in just addressing this year's dynamic.
The mayors are asking Congress to approve President Biden's request of $1.4 billion to help cities and states.
We're both grateful for what they've done. It's critical for us that this package passes over the next several weeks to get funding to cities, otherwise we'll have catastrophic impacts.
A sentiment shared by a growing number of state and local leaders trying to put pressure on the Biden administration to address the humanitarian crisis caused by record crossings at the southern border. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Well, we are going to be looking at some pretty quiet weather here over the next few days, but temperatures warming up. We'll talk more about that, more about the weekend next.
Now, from the CBS7 First Alert Weather Center, here's Chief Meteorologist Tom Tiefertiller.
Well, as we look outside once again, our live eye cam in Odessa, it's been a very nice evening if you've been out and about, as temperatures cooling off quite a bit again into the upper 50s out there. So some pleasant fall weather across West Texas, southeast of Mexico. It's these mountain areas on the plateau in Marfa, already 49 degrees there. But high pressure's in control of our weather, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. It's going to continue to move across to the east and continue to cause sinking air in the upper levels of the atmosphere on down towards the surface. And what that's going to do is, well, it's going to keep skies generally clear, maybe a high cloud or two out there, really about it. But also we're going to have some compressional heating That means things are going to warm up a little bit here over the next few days and into next week. Now, there are some low clouds across portions of South Texas creeping up into the areas around San Antonio, the crossroad areas in Victoria. But overall, though, it's a quiet evening out there, and we saw a pretty quiet day. Beautiful temperatures. Can't complain with any of this. 60s and 70s statewide. A nice 66 out towards New Mexico there in Albuquerque. So for the rest of tonight, again, here's what we are going to be looking at. Again, for the most part, pretty quiet conditions in the forecast as those temperatures will drop down into the lower 40s overnight tonight across the area. Tomorrow, maybe a couple of degrees warmer as we get into the 70s area wide, but look at that, some 80s popping up. Pecos, Fort Stockton, and Presidio tomorrow afternoon. Your CBS 7 First Alert exclusive 10-day forecast. Well, it's showing the warm-up continues into the weekend. Again, don't forget about that time change coming up early on Sunday morning, as temperatures will be into the mid-70s by then on Sunday. So looking pretty good for everything you got planned outdoors this weekend. And really warm weather. Temperatures running 10 to 15 degrees above where they should be this time of the year next week, into the mid-80s before a front rolls in late Wednesday. That's going to bring fall back to our forecast.
Still ahead, Ford has issued a recall alert and 2 popular North American amusement parks are merging. Ford is recalling close to 200,000 Mustangs. The recall is due to a brake fluid level sensor. It may not activate the visual warning indicator when brake fluid is low. The issue impacts 2020 through 2023 models. Ford says the fix is a software update that can be performed at dealerships at no cost to owners. The company plans to start sending letters to affected owners December 4th. And 2 popular North American amusement parks are merging. Six Flags announced today it is merging with Cedar Fair in an $8 billion deal. The merge will create a theme park powerhouse. Cedar Fair's flagship park is in Ohio, but it also owns Knott's Berry Farm in California, Schlitterbahn Water Park in Texas, and Canada's Wonderland in Ontario. Six Flags has about 20 parks in the U.S., 2 in Mexico and 1 in Canada. The new company will keep the Six Flags name. It will operate a total of 27 amusement parks and 15 water parks across the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. And romance, that's what researchers are calling desire by Generation Z to see less romance on TV. A new study from UCLA found the group thinks romance is overused in TV shows and movies. They prefer to see platonic friendships on screen. A 16-year-old research participant says the romance depiction, quote, can give people false ideas of what they should be wanting at that age. The study says Gen Z prefers wholesome entertainment with positive character relationships. And still ahead, the 2023 Rockefeller Center Christmas tree has been chosen. A Christmas tradition continues in New York. This year, the iconic 2023 Rockefeller Center Christmas tree will come from Vestal, New York. That's about an hour south of Syracuse. The 80-foot-tall Norway spruce will be cut on November 9th, and it's set to arrive at Rockefeller Center on Saturday, November 11th. The tree will be wrapped with more than 50,000 multicolored LED lights and topped with a Swarovski star. It will be lit during the live broadcast Christmas in Rockefeller Center on November 29th. Visitors will have about 6.5 weeks to view it, and the tree will stay up until January 13th. I'm excited, Tom. This is a pretty big staple.
Yeah, you know what else is coming up too here once they start getting this up and everything? Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which you can watch right here Thanksgiving morning on CBS7. New balloon this year, the Pillsbury Doughboy.
Yep.
Bluey from last year is going to be there again.
Oh, wow.
So all kinds of neat stuff coming up for that.
Some exciting stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it's a Christmas season, not that far away. I know a lot of people say, let's celebrate Thanksgiving. And yes, I agree with you totally, but it is getting to be that time of the year. And the weather, well, it just feels a little more like fall. We're warming up a little bit. In fact, we're going to be unseasonably mild late this weekend and especially next week, where we'll get into the warm category. And then we'll cool off again. Another front on the way late next week. In the meantime, lots of sun, not too many clouds, and definitely not any rain anytime soon.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to the clouds and maybe some colder weather. All right. Thanks for watching. CBS 7 First Alert News at 9 on the CW.